Hi guys, welcome back to Infinite Possibilities, the podcast where we explore the lives of amazing people, their choices, challenges and opportunities. And today I have a very special guest, Linda.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here. So Linda, what's your 1 minute introduction about what you do?
So the short version is that I'm a partner at KPMG. I look after the technology enablement business for us in enterprise advisory, which basically means that I get to implement a whole bunch of technology for a living, which is a really nice place to be. And then in my spare time, I'm basically a mother of 2 children.
Oh, very nice.
Who drive me nuts, but I love them dearly. Promise.
Yeah. Is it 1 boy, 1 girl?
1 boy, 1 girl.
Wow, that's the perfect. That's what the Asian,
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Everybody wants 1 boy, 1
one
girl.
girl.
So I told my husband that I'd retired after having my girl. So it was all good.
Sounds good. So we really want to start at the beginning and see how Linda got to where she is today.
Okay.
So back at the beginning, what kind of child were you like growing up?
I would say that I was a fairly ordinary child more than anything. So I grew up basically in Western Sydney. I did what my parents told me to do. I learned English and didn't really speak a lot of English until I went to school. I then basically spent, I suppose, the first 6 years of my schooling being really a tomboy more than anything else.
Hey, cool.
And then, after that, I had a teacher who was very good to me, who told me that I needed to apply myself, so I did, and ended up actually duxing the class. So at that point, I went, ooh, maybe there's something in this.
Yeah. So was that grade 7 when she's like grade 6?
I was grade 6, yeah.
Oh,
grade
she caught
6.
you early.
She caught me early, so I applied myself at grade 6. I kept applying myself for the rest of school, which is a very good thing.
Yeah.
So I ended up being academically always very capable.
Yeah.
And on occasion I would do something sporty, but not all the time.
Very nice. Very all-rounded then.
Like I said, I kind of did everything.
Yeah. Tell me more about being that tomboy. So did you have siblings growing up?
I did. I had a brother and a sister.
Oh, very nice.
And I got along with my brother very, very well because he's the sibling that's right next to me. And so...
So you're like the oldest and he's the
I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest.
Yeah. So
should be the cheekiest, right? Yes or no?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My parents would say that for sure. So my brother was a big influence in my life, still is to this day. And so, I grew up basically trying to be like him. So I was a boy more often than I was a girl.
Oh, that's so funny. And what about your older sister? Did she take off that influence, the tomboy?
Not at all. Not at all. My
poor
sister.
Linda.
My sister was the good child, unlike myself. So no, my sister was the one who did what my parents told her to do, and to this day she remains the good child in the family.
Oh, that's good. We've got to get one of those, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the other 2 of us aren't as good.
Perfect. That's why you have 3 kids. It's insurance, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And I'm glad my parents had 3 children.
Yeah.
They needed the insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. And then tell me more about like academics. So did your parents like give you a lot of pressure academically, being Asian, or like did they give you that pressure and you sort of like were like meh, but then you had your favorite teacher come along grade 6 and change your life? Like I suppose I guess like did your parents sort of force you like from grade 1 to 6 to get your act together academically?
Look, like every Asian family, I suspect I was subject to the same academic pressures as everybody else. So, much of my parents' frame of mind was that they came to Australia to give their children opportunity. And that opportunity meant that I had to study and apply myself in my studies so that I could do better things than what they were capable of. So education was the most important thing in our household.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that like it took your teacher, right? Like you listened to your teacher more than your parents.
Oh, look, I think to be fair, my parents had a small business growing up. They ran a restaurant, and as a result of that, they spent most of their time trying to make the money that we needed to survive as a family. And so, as a result of that, they concentrated their time on making sure that I didn't have to work.
Yeah.
And so it was my teacher who actually was the one who said, "You're smarter than you look."
Wow.
So I paid attention at that point.
Yeah, that's cool. And what about favourite subjects at school at the time?
Oh, I think I actually really enjoyed learning a lot of things, and I still do to this day. So I would say I naturally gravitated to, you know, maths and science and things like that. And so that's shown up in my career, I suppose. But I also loved languages. So I studied German, French, Japanese while I was through school.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so I've always loved languages. My mother is a natural when it comes to languages, and I think I've picked up that particular trait as well.
Yeah, that's so useful as well.
It is.
Yeah, my mum would say, like, you know, if you know like a couple of languages or know an instrument, you won't starve, right? That kind
Pretty
of thing.
much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I know how to order food in a lot of different languages. That's about the extent of it.
Impressive. Yeah, and tell me more about how you sort of like fit in the school environment. So being a tomboy, were you popular? Was that cool at the time?
It wasn't actually. So I went to an all-girls school.
Oh no!
So it really wasn't. I think I wouldn't say I was the most popular person, but I was well known.
Oh, for the wrong things.
Necessarily. And, you know, I was generally liked, but I had, I would say, a few close friends, and that's just the nature of the person that I am. Because I'm an introvert by nature. People know me, but I only have a very few close friends in my life.
Yeah, that's cool. And I'm surprised, like, you know, going to an all-girls school, you didn't conform to being the more girly girl, like, or was your brother's influence so strong that even in the 9 to 3 when you were at school, it was still influencing you?
Look, I think I never bought into being a girly girl at all. I have to admit, I've become more girl as my daughter was born, surprisingly.
Oh, that's funny.
Because she wanted to be princesses and ballerinas, so I had to figure out how to do that. But no, it was never something that was part of who I was growing up at all.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, and any other defining sort of turning points in your childhood? So there was your teacher who was like, get your act together, you smart kid.
She slapped me around a little bit.
Tough love.
But it was, look, I'm very grateful to her because she changed the trajectory of my life in many ways. I would say the next turning point for my life was really getting into a cooperative scholarship program for university.
Ooh, very nice.
And so that set me on a path in terms of the career that I would have. And professional services basically became what I would do as part of that process because the Big Four were actually sponsors, the scholarship sponsors for that program.
So that's like post-uni, right?
That was actually part of my undergraduate degree.
So you already like almost knew your next step ahead?
Yes.
Wow.
So I was very lucky in that respect. I kind of fell into it. It wasn't planned
How did
at
you hear
all.
about it? Was like Linda, like your next favorite teacher, like Linda? Let me have a talk to you.
No, essentially at the time it was a brand new program. UTS actually put out this program that had a cooperative scholarship program associated with it to try and get people into IT because IT was a burgeoning industry at the time. And so I had a look at the brochure and both my brother and my sister did computer science degrees.
Wow.
So it was kind of natural that would happen. And I looked at it and it looked interesting enough. So I applied not knowing if I would get in and lo and behold, I got in. So that's kind of how I got into the program itself and how I got into technology. And from there, that led into my first job. And then I'd suppose the real defining point was the first job that I had was with PwC as part of their consulting business. And the first couple of jobs that I had from there essentially defined the rest of my career because the experience that I got doing those jobs, they were big custom builds, some of the first in the world. And to this day, the system that I built, that I was part of building when I was a graduate, actually only just got decommissioned about 4 years ago. The second system that I built is actually still in production and is basically in the process. They're planning to try and decommission it, but they're still waiting for the technology to catch up to what we did back then.
Wow, so influential, the pioneer.
Those jobs basically gave me experience that not many people in the world managed to get. And, yeah, they've been part of my career ever since. So I'm very grateful for those opportunities that I got.
That's amazing. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So when you were sort of like graduating high school and then you're thinking about the career, so computer science was one, but like what other alternative career paths did you kind of consider? / what did your parents want you to do?
So I really wanted to study medicine.
Doctor.
Yeah, I wanted to be a doctor. My parents were very happy about that to a degree. But really for me, I think the thing that kind of has been a constant thread to my life has just been the fact that I've always wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something that would be meaningful to somebody's life and change the course of their lives. And so medicine just seemed like a very obvious choice at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it, but computer science has ended up actually giving me the opportunity to do that as well. So I'm very grateful for that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. And then tell me what it was like sort of studying computer science. Was it the dream?
I wouldn't say it was a dream.
Because surely you would have some sort of expectation before going in, like, my sister said it was cool, my brother said it was cool.
Yeah. No. Look, I think, I've always loved computers. I've been...
Hardcore gamer?
I have been a gamer in my life, so I've always enjoyed technology. I've worked with a computer ever since I was, I think, 7 years old. So I've always had them around me. So going into computer science was kind of a natural progression from there. There are subjects I really loved. There are subjects I really hated. But at the end of the day, what I found was I really enjoyed modelling the world.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed analysing the kind of what was happening in the world and really getting to the heart of the problem and being able to solve a problem. And then the payback for me was always the look of delight on my customer's face when you go, well, you gave me a problem, I fixed it, here's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And just that gratefulness and the joy has always been the thing that's driven me to do the work that I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. The same joy you would get, being a doctor, helping a patient kind of when they light up their face.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And sort of how did you enjoy your university experience? Were you one of those people that, best 4 years of your life or or were you one of those people that, just turn up for lectures, go home?
I turned up for lectures and then I'd go hang out with my friends.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, so I still have friends that I know and hang out with to this day from university. It was a good experience for me. I think what was really enlightening for me was the opportunity because I had the scholarship to actually work while I was studying as well.
Oh, that's
and
good.
So it made it possible for me to actually apply what I was learning in university into the real world. And it was at that point that I realised that university really doesn't teach you that much.
Nice. And so tell me all about that scholarship program. So was it like 4 years and then last 2 years you work part-time, or how does it work?
So it was a sandwich course. So I did a year of university, then I did a summer in work, and then I come back to another year, do another summer or do another semester in work, and then come back and do my final year.
Wow, so does that mean you have to, play catch up because you have to
so it's a fairly intensive course. So it was over 3 years, but in those 3 years, while we were working the semester, we actually had to do a summer semester to make up for the working semester as well. So in effect, we had 3 semesters a year rather than 2 semesters a year. So it was pretty intense. But I'm actually really grateful for it because it meant that I got out into university, got out of university quickly, went straight into the workforce. Going into the workforce, I actually had 12 months worth of experience going into the workforce, which was also really useful as well.
Yeah, that's crazy because I would think that they would extend your degree by a year but
no,
they
crammed it in.
No time to waste.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who are like uni students currently and they're sort of juggling multiple jobs and, studying as well. But hearing what you did, any words of wisdom?
I would say you can do a lot more than you probably think you can do.
Did you sleep much?
I actually sleep really well. I do sleep a lot. A lot of people ask me if I sleep much, and the truth is I do sleep. I actually really enjoy sleeping. I'm not much of a morning person.
Yeah.
But what I found that I did give up, and this is going to probably surprise a lot of people, but I haven't watched television in over 20 years.
Wow. Is that the key to your success? Everyone's switching the TV.
Stop watching TV. No, it was a really interesting thing. I actually, of all the things that I gave up, it was things that I found it was dead time to me.
Yeah.
So watching TV was an example of it. So instead of just sitting in front of the couch and vegging, I prefer to do things with my hands. I prefer to make things because I find an hour of that is more refreshing to me than an hour of sitting in front of the TV.
Ah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, and TV with there's a lot of ads, which is a lot of fake time, and you can't really necessarily control what you're watching.
Exactly.
It depends on the. So did you sort of substitute it with YouTube?
Yes,
One thing for another.
I do have a lot of streaming services. So yes, I mean I do use streaming services, and I've always used some sort of streaming service or video on demand or something like that instead. But what it means is that I do watch shows. I just watch them in discrete pieces in a time that I want, rather
when
than
you want.
what television forces on me.
Yeah, that's true. What about watching the news? One of the great enjoyments of life.
So I actually don't watch the news. I actually tend to read the news instead. So I do have a news service. So I'll read the ABC and the Australian and the AFR and stuff like that. Yeah. I tend to do that first thing in the morning as well. So
nice. Do you read hard copy or you read all online, right?
Yeah, it's all electronic these days.
Okay, yeah.
I gave up hard copy.
We still have newspapers in the kitchen. Some people will sip in there.
I will do that at lunchtime sometimes just to take my mind off things. But no, in general, most of my life is spent electronically as well. So yeah.
Tech girl, what can you say?
Yes, well, I try and get off screens as much as possible as well because I find I need the break from technology and screens. And so the other thing that I've done pretty much all my life is I've hiked a lot in my life.
Oh, that's very good.
It used to be my hiking holiday was the holiday that I needed to just get away from work. And so I find that doing that on a weekend is really good for refreshing me for the rest of the week as well. So like I said, I choose other pastimes to kind of give me the balance that I need in life so that I can work as intensively as I do during the working week.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And choosing it really intentionally. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then tell me more about graduation and then straight into PwC. So there's no really long, really big learning curve, right? Because you've sort of been doing it throughout uni.
Yeah, so and that was a real advantage.
Yeah.
And yeah, PwC was, it was really good for me. I went into the consulting business, into the custom builds business as well at that point in time. So it gave me huge opportunity, huge challenges to navigate. And I would say those couple of jobs that I did, the first couple of projects, have actually been projects that have taught me what I use to this day in my life. So yeah, it was a really good training ground. And yeah, I recommend consulting as a training ground to anybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what did the first 2 years or so look like in your career as a graduate? What kind of stuff were you doing? And were you coding most of the time?
So I was in the custom builds business.
Yeah,
and
what exactly is that?
So basically what it meant was I was building software for companies. So the first job I ever did was actually at Dave Jones, and we built their merchandising solution.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the thing that manages inventory throughout their whole business was something that I was part of building. And like I said, I actually worked on the project that decommissioned that solution 4 years ago as well. So I kind of saw...
Full circle.
Full circle, absolutely. So that was the first job that I had. The second job that I had was for Land Information New Zealand. So that was important for a couple of reasons. Personally, it was important because it was the first time that I left the country.
And another turning point.
Another turning point in my life. And so, at that point, I left all my family, I left all my friends. I went to a job overseas and had to figure out how to do things like cook for myself.
Yes.
I had to find an apartment for myself and all of that. So that was an important turning point in terms of me becoming my own person and what I wanted to be. Having that freedom was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But also in terms of the project itself, we were doing, so we were building the spatial system as well as the land title system for the New Zealand government. So every time somebody transacted a piece of land, like buying or selling a house or anything, it actually went through that system. Every time there was an earthquake, it went through that system as well. So, so that was a piece of technology that was bleeding edge at the time.
Yeah.
It hadn't been done before anywhere else in the world, and I was on a project to do it.
Yeah.
So that was
exciting.
really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
And you were so young in your career, no?
Yeah, I was early in my career, but like I said, that work actually defined the rest of my career. And so I'm very grateful for that experience. And it was from that job that I was actually recruited to work in Silicon Valley as well. So like I said, those jobs actually set up pretty much the trajectory of everything else. So I spent a couple of years in Silicon Valley. I was part of the engineering team there. I crossed over into marketing there for the first time as well. And so I moved from technical to commercial roles.
Oh, that's interesting.
And being in a commercial role there actually gave me a lot of experience as to what does it mean to actually run a business, run a P&L for the first time.
Yeah.
So I was young and I learnt a lot very, very quickly in order to survive. And yeah, all of those skills are basically what I use today to do what I do as a partner, which is kind of cool when you think about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and then so tell me more about the move to Silicon Valley. So how did that sort of how did that opportunity come across, and how did you decide to seize it?
So we, as part of the work that I was doing in New Zealand, we spent a lot of time with the vendor. So at the time it was Informix, and Informix was then purchased by IBM, and that's how I ended up in IBM. So spending a lot of time with the development teams just meant that we got to know each other quite well, and the things that we were doing in the system were things that were really pushing the system to the next version. And so when we finished that project, the engineering team said, now that you've done it in the product for a customer, do you want to do it for real in the product for all our customers? So that was the opportunity that presented itself.
Yeah.
And yes, it was scary, but the truth is, as a technologist, if you want to cut your teeth, there's no better place to do it than in Silicon Valley. Right. So I jumped at the opportunity and said, what the hey, we'll figure it out. I was young enough to make some mistakes. From there, I moved from New Zealand to Vancouver first, and then actually to San Francisco, and that's how I ended up working overseas for a period.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's sucks for PwC, right? Did a lot of people actually end up going?
No, it was really just a couple of people who ended up going. We were doing such important work to the system that they wanted the skill set in the core engineering team. So, it was an opportunity that really, in many ways, was too good to pass up. Yeah. So, I took a leap of faith and I just did it.
Yeah, and how was the experience going to Silicon Valley? You already had your really big jump from New Zealand, so I guess it was
This was an even bigger jump in some ways, because I was much further away from my family, from all of my family, actually. So it was a good experience personally, because I kind of experienced a whole nother culture, and I experienced what it was like to be in that environment. Very entrepreneurial, really different to everything in Australia. And you were actually at the heart of innovation, which was also really fascinating at the time. We were in the dot-com boom at the time, so that was just a really different cultural experience to have, and a different lifestyle experience. So I have friends to this day who, still live there, and we still go see on a regular basis. So personally, I grew up.
Yeah, forced to grow up, maybe.
Forced to grow up. At least I knew how to cook by then, which is always good.
Essential life skills. What's your go-to? Fried rice?
I do a good fried rice, actually.
Very nice,
it's amazing what fried rice can do when you don't have much in the fridge.
Yeah, it's really simple. Any veggie will do.
Yeah, pretty much. As long as you have veggies and an egg and some rice, you're good.
Yeah.
So I learned how to feed myself, and And then, yeah, career-wise, I suppose, it was just such a different environment.
Yeah.
It was also commercially just such a different environment. IBM taught me a lot about how to manage a portfolio company and what that looks like, and the experience of doing that and investing in certain things rather than others in order to manage the portfolio of risk that you have. And in many ways, the partnership is reflective of that as well. So, yeah, like I said, those skills are skills that I use to this day.
Yeah, it's so funny looking back and connecting the dots.
Yes, in hindsight, it
Yeah,
all
it just
seems
makes
to make sense.
It's like, this is why you're a partner. You were born for it. 10 years ago, you were being made like this.
But at the time, I had no idea.
Yeah.
At the time, it was just a bit of fun.
Yeah, and how was the sort of learning curve? Was it like very big to go from like PwC, Silicon Valley? Like, I mean, PwC, like everyone knows it's still pretty like hardcore, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, look, you know, I think the experience, consulting is a great career to prepare you for uncertainty.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea what I was doing when I turned up. And look, I got opportunities that I didn't necessarily have experience for. But I suppose consulting gave me the confidence to say, I'll figure it out. And I figured it out. And so, yeah, I highly recommend consulting in somebody's career path at some stage, because it really it gives you a set of skills to solve problems and to deal with ambiguity and uncertainty. And so much of our life today has so much uncertainty.
Yeah, especially since COVID, like through,
Absolutely. So yeah, if you have the base skills to just go, I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure anybody else has an answer that I can copy, but I will figure it out. Yeah, consulting prepares you for that really, really well.
Ah, that's so interesting. I never thought of it that way. yeah, that's cool. And then tell me what happened after IBM. Woohoo!
So I left IBM after having, I would say, my midlife crisis. I probably did it a little bit earlier than most people, but really I just, I was looking at what I was doing and I was having fun and I was enjoying myself, but I kind of thought, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? And the answer, unfortunately, was no. So then I went, great, so now what?
Yeah.
So I actually left IBM, came back to Australia at that point in time, and I did my MBA so my mother wouldn't worry about me, really.
So good.
It's like, Mum, I'm not just giving up a job.
Yeah.
I'm going back to school. And I took that time to really explore what I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew that I loved problem solving, and I knew that I wanted to help and I wanted to make a contribution to this world. I just didn't know how. So while I was doing my MBA, I did a couple of stints with not-for-profits and things like that to try and figure out if that's what I wanted to do. But at the end of the day, what I came to as a realisation was that if I wanted to make an impact on this world that was bigger than something that I could do myself, actually being part of a firm like this is probably one of the best routes to actually achieve that. And so I went back into consulting, got the kind of the problem solving that I was looking for, but also got the opportunity then to also actually do interesting work, do good work. And so that led me to a career with Deloitte. And at Deloitte I did a lot of work in public sector, and so I had the opportunity to basically, I wrote the e-health strategy for Australia with a team, and so that was awesome as an opportunity, and I managed to do it twice as well.
Amazing.
And that sort of work meant that I've done something that actually touches the lives of every Australian in this country, which is actually kind of cool when you think about it. And so that gave me, I suppose, the problem solving that I wanted, the opportunity to do good, and the opportunity to leave a mark in some sort of way with my career and the life that I've had. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then so like, how was your sort of like work different from working in PwC? Because you're still very much in the tech space, but maybe the client has changed.
The client's changed. I've become more senior, so the level of the client changed. But also, I was doing advisory work at Deloitte more than implement work.
Okay.
And so that advisory work led me to do more strategy type activity, and I really enjoyed that level of problem solving as well. So yeah, it was different.
Yeah.
I was advising more than I was actually doing. So in some ways it was just a different lens. Same skills, just different lens. And I suppose in many respects it's those two things that I actually bring together today in what I do today.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
yeah, like I said, it's just a gradual process of building skills and things, and it all makes sense in hindsight, but at the time there was no plan.
Yeah.
No plan at all.
Yeah, that's cool. And then tell me more about like Deloitte. So was it like very hard to go from MBA back into the consulting? Or was it like, man, I've already done my PwC foundation, all good,
It was actually. I find, I suppose the difference was I wasn't going back into consulting to do what I did before.
Yeah.
I actually joined Deloitte in their strategy and operations business, not the technology business.
Yeah.
Completely different business.
That's awesome.
And for a good period, I pretended that I didn't know anything about technology. Because I was doing strategy work and I was doing operations work.
Wouldn't that make you outstanding to know technology? Like, why'd you hide your like key skill?
I suppose for me, so I did my MBA. I didn't do my MBA in technology at all. I did my MBA in corporate finance.
Nice.
And for me, it was just adding a different dimension to who I was as well. So going into a strategy role meant that I was using those skills more than I was using my technology skills.
Yeah.
Now, at the time, it became very obvious at some point that it was almost impossible to ignore technology. So to do strategy work, you needed to understand something about the digital transformation agenda that was just happening in market more broadly. And so having technology skills then made me even more valuable.
Yeah.
I had the strategy skills.
Actually, my background is in...
So at that point, those two worlds came colliding really hard together. And it's what led me to do, I suppose, technology strategy work at the end of the day. And really, it's what I do today. So we go all the way today from strategy through to implement. And, we're unique in market because of it. And I think the mix of careers and history that I've had has meant that I'm actually now able to do this myself and able to create a business that does this, that is actually really valuable to my customers as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's cool.
Yeah, and it's awesome that it all worked out. Yeah.
Like I said, no plan.
Yeah, I know. The plan, just make it up as you go, consultant.
Oh, look, I think at the end of the day, there was kind of a plan, and the plan was more that I knew the skills that I wanted to have as an individual, and I went looking for those skills, and that's what I built. I didn't look for jobs, I looked for skills and opportunities. And so when an opportunity presented itself, what I've always found is that I've landed a job because they were looking for something that kind of fit in the cracks, that mixed a couple of different skills, and I've always been almost the perfect candidate that they were looking for that, because I had the mix of skills that they needed. So in that respect, I prepared myself to be able to take advantage of opportunities as they presented themselves to me. And that was really the plan.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so when you're doing your MBA, what sort of skills in particular were you looking for? Like one was like the helping people?
Yeah, I suppose there was the opportunity to help people. There was also the opportunity to contribute to something that would be longer lasting than what I could do myself in life. And then the third bit was I was very deliberate with my MBA in that as a marketing manager, I was doing things that I didn't know the theory for. I just kind of learnt on the job and I was looking to bulk that up. So I deliberately didn't do anything associated with technology. And so that's the reason I got my MBA in corporate finance. It was actually because it was a fascinating field to me, and it was just, I needed to understand how the money runs through an organisation in order to understand an organisation.
Yeah, well, good on you, because a lot of people would have opted for the easy route to stick with what they know, rather than making their life a bit difficult.
I'm really good at making my life difficult.
Damn, that's so funny. So would you recommend an MBA, or like who would sort of benefit from it? And yeah.
I do actually. If you have come from a technical degree, I do recommend the MBA. But I do recommend that you do your MBA not in information systems, because that's not fair. So yes, I do recommend an MBA as a complement to your technical skills itself. If you've done a commerce degree, you've probably done a lot of the stuff that's in an MBA, so then I question like what the value of it is, unless you do something that's quite different to what your undergraduate was. And so yes, I made my life more difficult for myself by doing something completely different, but I feel like having survived it now, I'm a stronger person for it.
Maybe in the moment you hate it, but in hindsight, it was a fantastic decision.
And there are a lot of things that in the moment I hated it. So I did public speaking when I was in school. Hated it with a passion. But, you know, today
Look at you now.
I'm forced into a situation where I have to use those skills every single day. So I'm extremely grateful that I was forced to do it as a child. And so it's given me a set of skills that I use all the time now. So yes, I do highly recommend being uncomfortable in safe spaces when you can, as you're young and as you're working your way through your career. Try things, because when you're young you can make mistakes, and it's actually really okay. Even when you're my age you can make mistakes, and it's really okay. Because unless you make mistakes you don't learn. And isn't that more valuable?
The growth.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Also, wondering for those who are currently having a quarter life crisis, what to do about that? Like, maybe they don't actually want to go back and do an MBA. Like, could you have done it another route? Like, I mean, the way that you did it looks good, right? Because it's like, yeah, man, she's doing fine. She's just, you know, doing this education so she can get a higher, higher position later.
But really, it was a cover for the fact that I didn't know what I was going to do. There's not much that I can say. It worked for me as an approach. It may not work for everybody else, but it's a path that I think every step that I've taken has been about figuring out how that will help me move forward in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Do you reckon you could have done like a 6 months no job and then figured out your life and gone from there? Or do you think the MBA...
I kind of did do 6 months no job. I just did it over 2 years. So I didn't have to do my MBA over 2 years. I could have done it in 12 months. I chose to do it over 2 years because I wanted the opportunity to just explore other things as well. So while I was doing that, I didn't just do the not-for-profit stuff. I actually I explored art because I've always had a creative side. I actually picked up pottery at that point in time, and I still throw pots to this day, and I really enjoy it. I love the manual work that comes from that. It's actually really rewarding, and so I kind of did do 6 months no work. I just
spaced it out
and
made it look nice.
Exactly.
So that means you pretty much just did it part-time, right?
I did it part-time, yes. So I did, I think, 2-3 subjects a semester. And so that gave me, 2-3 days a week that I could just go do something else that I wanted to.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then back to Deloitte. So around 14 years at Deloitte.
A long time.
Holy heck.
A long time.
Did it feel like 14 years?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, the lovely thing about professional services firms is that you actually get the opportunity to try a couple of different careers. So it's 14 years, but I had like 4 or 5 different jobs in those 14 years.
What were they?
So, like I said, I started out in strategy and operations. I ended up doing a stint in technology as well, in that advisory space. And then I also spent some time working in the implementation space as well. And so, those jobs kind of gave me different options, right? I worked in private sector with energy mining companies, natural gas companies. I worked in public sector, working in the healthcare space. I worked in retail while I was there as well. So I had a lot of different experiences while I was going through that process. But yes, 14 years in one organisation does seem like a long time, but for me it was every couple of years I was trying something new, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then tell me about the move to KPMG. Why another Big Four on your resume? Like,
to be really honest,
when's EY coming? No,
yeah, we're not doing that. No, I think if I'm really honest, since my first job, so since PwC, I've actually never applied for a job in my life. So
LinkedIn's the way to grab Linda. EY, if you're watching this.
So I didn't intend to move to KPMG. I had a recruiter approach me for the role. I actually turned them down the first time.
Nice.
But I think a couple of things. The opportunity at KPMG was a really cool one in that it allowed me to bring together, as I said, the strategy skills that I had, as well as the implementation skills that I had. But more importantly, I've always had an entrepreneurial streak. I was raised by an entrepreneur. If my father had had his way, I think I would have been an entrepreneur in my life. But it gave me the opportunity to build a business within a well-funded construct. And so in that respect, it was almost like a natural progression to go from a position of being in the business to now building the business. And so, yeah, that's the reason that I came to KPMG in the first place. And look, it's been a great 3.5, nearly 4 years now. And
Before you know, it'll be 14.
We shall see. We shall see. I've still got a few years left in me before I have to retire.
Yeah, that's awesome. And can you tell me why in the beginning, why you were hesitant to come to KPMG, and how did that recruiter pull you over? And like, how did they sort of approach someone who's like, at Deloitte, you were like pretty high up. So how did they you get like 10 billion emails. Like, how did they actually manage to
cut through?
Cut
through. To be really frank, I normally ignore recruiter things from LinkedIn, but this one was just different enough that I decided to have a conversation. And I suppose I didn't intend to move into the enterprise division at all. I'd spent most of my life in consulting, and so Deloitte had a group called Deloitte Private, and that wasn't really what I wanted to do. But when I looked at the opportunity a little bit further and the opportunity to work in not the really small end, but that medium end of the market, I really love that part of the economy, just because you actually get to work with people who will do something with the advice. So like the public sector work that I've done, the work that I've done at the top end of town, I've produced a lot of reports that have just gone nowhere. Whereas here in the mid-market, I get the opportunity to not necessarily produce a very large report, but to actually work with people who will adopt the advice that I give them. And so I actually have the opportunity to make a much bigger impact in this part of the market rather than elsewhere. And that was the attractor. So that, coupled with the opportunity to build the business from scratch, to take all the things that I have learnt and not liked elsewhere and go, I'm not making that mistake again, to create something valuable. That's really what kind of cut through for me, and the reason that I looked at this opportunity and went, I think I can do this.
Yeah, that's cool. And why do you think it was easier to make an impact? Is it because the businesses are smaller, less bottlenecks, that kind of thing?
It's less bureaucracy. But also it's a lot more personal for them. So each person in the mid-market in a business tends to be a decision maker of some way, shape or form, rather than just somebody with budget. And so when they take on an idea that you have, or when they go, actually that's a bit experimental, but we'll give it a go, they're genuinely committing to it. And so this can change the course of their business and the trajectory of their business. So the opportunity to do that is really amazing when you think about it.
That's awesome.
And so the opportunity to do that at scale, to touch a lot of businesses, that's I think that's really important. That plays to my desire to create something from my life that will last well after I'm gone from this planet.
That's cool. And tell me more about building businesses from scratch. So did you have individuals with like nothing and then just having that idea and then they built it, or was it generally where they're pretty early stages?
They tend to be, so actually the businesses that we work with, so our sweet spot is to work with businesses that are growing rapidly, somewhere between 250 million in revenue to $1 billion in revenue.
Okay, that's a lot already.
So they're already sizable businesses,
Yeah,
but the big thing that I find with a lot of our customers is that what got them to this point, so what made them successful this far, is not necessarily the same behaviours that will make them successful in the next bit of their future. And helping them navigate that change from being, in the business and being able to touch and feel and understand where the business is going, to a position of actually the business is too big now. You can't touch and feel everything. You actually need to start creating structures and systems and management teams because the business is too big now. Being able to help them navigate that, I find that extremely rewarding, right? And then seeing them go through that transition point and survive that transition point and in fact thrive through that, that's actually really rewarding.
Yeah, that's so awesome. It does sound like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It is.
Cool. And now on to the next fun bit, kids.
Yeah.
So you're like a really you're definitely like a career woman, very like high up, and then, throwing kids into the works slows things down. Was it like the societal pressure, or like how did that sort of decision come about?
So I wouldn't say it was societal pressure.
Okay,
I would
good
say,
to know. Kids are happy to know.
So I used to say it's not that my clock wasn't ticking, it's just that I wasn't sure I had a clock in the first place.
Smart.
I wasn't really sure that I wanted to have children at all, because I was enjoying myself in my 20s.
Life's good.
Life was pretty good.
Stress-free.
It was pretty stress-free. I was earning a good income. I was enjoying that income. I travelled extensively. And so, kids kind of would crimp my style, really. But it was my husband who actually really wanted to have children. And so after many years of saying we really should have children, I relented. And I said, we're not just having one, we're having two.
Nice. All or nothing.
All or nothing. You're either going to do this or it's not going to happen. So we had 2 kids, and I did, it was the picture perfect. I had my boy first and then I had my girl. They're 2 years apart from each other.
Perfect. You planned this.
It might have been slightly planned. But now that I have them, I wouldn't give them up for the world. I absolutely adore my children. They are very humbling creatures. So they've given me a lot of, I suppose, humility and reality, a reality check for who and what I am. And in many respects, I credit my children for giving me, I suppose, the ability to be a lot more pragmatic than I would otherwise be, because my kids will be the first person to tear you down. The moment you have any airs or anything about how wonderful you are as a person because of what you've achieved, your child will be the first person who will stomp their feet and not listen to you and not do as they're told. And so they're very grounding, and I absolutely adore my kids as a result of that.
Yeah. Wow, you recommend kids to everyone? Is it like the best thing that happened to you? That's what people say. My best achievement was my kids. How do you feel about that?
I think it depends on the person. Look, my experience with kids has been wonderful. The experience that most of my friends who have had kids have not regretted it at all.
Nice.
But I think
that clock ticking girl. No kidding.
So look, I do think kids are a wonderful thing, but I don't think kids are for everyone. There are some people who, they have enough sources of contentment in their life that children aren't necessary, and so I think it's really up to each person.
Yeah, that's hard, because I know some people, like, they weren't a kids person and then they had kids, best thing ever.
Yes.
But you don't know until they're born and you can't return them.
Yes, unfortunately the manufacturer is a little bit dodgy.
Yeah.
There's no returns policy on children. So, it is pretty much a one-way street.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so hard. Until you experience it, then you know.
Yeah. I do suggest playing with other people's children if you want to.
Yeah, start small.
Start small. I'm more than happy to loan out mine if you're interested.
Perfect. Sounds good. And then so tell me more about coming back to work after that. So, damn, leaving the kids behind, still a career woman, let's go. What happened?
Look, it was hard. I won't kid you and say it was easy. So there are a couple of decisions that I did make though. The first is I came back full time. I never came back part time. The main reason
all or nothing.
It was all or nothing. I'm a little bit like that, but the other thing is this is an unfortunate truth of our sector. I think we're getting better at it, but at the time, I'd seen a lot of senior females try to work part time, and effectively what would happen was they'd end up working full time, but being paid part time. So I kind of went, nah, I'm going to get paid. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to get paid. So we did that. And so the other choice that we made was that as my children were being born, one parent would be home when they were young. And so I took a year off with maternity leave, and then my husband took a year off and vice versa. And we did that for the two kids. And then in the fifth year, we both tried to work, and we ended up in a situation where the kids were here. I was in Melbourne and my husband was in Singapore, and that did not work at all. And so at that point, we decided that one parent would always stay home with the kids. It was a tough, like, balancing work. It's particularly the size of this career with home. I think having it all is a fallacy. I don't think it really exists. And I think that as women, it's almost like a dirty secret that we need to be able to have a full-time job and not have either a cleaner or a nanny or something like that to help, or a stay-at-home partner to help. I actually think that's fake. If you look at, the successful men in history, most of them have a wife at home of some way, shape or form, or if their wives are working, there's a nanny of some sort, or there's a cleaner of some sort in their lives. And I think that's just the reality of the world that we live in. And so we just need to accept that and stop shaming women. To expect that they should have all of these things without any help, because it's hard. It's a lot to do, and it is really, really hard. And then if they do it all, then it affects the quality of their children's lives, their lives, and then they burn out, and that's not a healthy position either.
I mean, it looks good on the outside, the dream.
Yes, but the truth is I don't know anybody who has a big career and does everything at home as well.
Shoot. Okay, let's say bye.
Please.
Bye.
This is a